not, but from what I heard, we're trying to identify some areas of need for people that are homeless, and also educate them on how to keep what we give them. Now, is that a fair statement? To be able to teach them, if we give them, because I was sharing during break with somebody that guy that I helped, it took me 7 months to get him into an apartment and get him some stuff and things like that. He was homeless before that. I helped him get an apartment. And now today he's couch surfing because I couldn't, I said, you had it made. I mean, he had a check coming in every month. I was his payee. I took it that far for 2 years, and I paid all of his bills, and he was on Green Met. He was on, he had Job and Family Services. He had food stamps. He did that. He got his own phone. He paid for it himself and all that. I just managed his account. But today he's made decisions that he's couch surfing again. And I told him that. I said, you know what? He said, don't worry about me, preacher. And I said, you know what? I'm not worried about you. I'm concerned for my friend because you had it better. You had it bad and you got better. And now you chose to sleep on people's couches till the first fight, and then you're out. And then guess who he's calling? Pastor Chris. So, but part of it is providing meeting the needs and then teaching them how to keep what we give them and to grow from there. So,
let me just note that one of the struggles that we're going to have is to define success. We're not going to define success by saying that more people are helped and that more people are able to move ahead from where they are than remain behind. I think what Chris is addressing here is important. For us, I think whatever percentage we're able to improve their lives and they're able to sustain it, that's success, because right now there is no way to measure the success here in Fairborn. We just don't have the income. I talked with Dr. Pollock. Dr. Pollock's back there. He's a new rector of the Episcopal Church, and he works with the homeless board down in Dayton. Is that correct, John? Yeah. I'm sorry. It's not on. Can you give me some more? Okay. Okay, there you go. Yeah, Dr. John Pollock, who is the rector at the St. Christopher's Episcopal Church here in town, but he works with the homeless board down in Dayton, and he talks about how there are resources available statewide that cross county lines, but you have to know how to access them. And that's part of the we have to be educated, because part of the struggle that I have learned here in Fairborn is Ohio is a parochial state. We don't think much beyond the Ohio Oceans, which is area and the river. That's the Ohio Oceans, and we feel like we have to have some kind of a passport to cross the Indiana or the Pennsylvania state lines. And I was born and raised here, so I'm speaking whereof I know. My family is from the Appalachian culture, and so I understand this. I mean, I don't live it anymore, but I certainly understand it. This needs to be overcome by us, because of all the places I've ever lived in Ohio, Fairborn is the most parochial place I've ever lived. It's like nothing happens outside the boundaries. We all know better, but we don't live that culture. We're very Fairborn centric. Nothing wrong with that. I'm very proud of this community. The reason I've been here for as many years as I have, I like the community, but that needs to be overcome. We need to overcome that. And we need to overcome some of the natural boundaries then that are imported for us outside. State boundaries, federal boundaries, county boundaries, cultural boundaries. We need to identify them and overcome them. So one of the things we're going to talk about here, I'm going to let Missy Frost here share some information about the city again, is what we can do locally. What can we do locally? And what will we have to overcome to make that happen, okay? We got some ideas here, and some of them will address some of the things we identified earlier on. But let me turn this over to Missy.
So just something to think about. There's 32,000 residents in the city of Fairborn. Census data has the city at a poverty rate of 20.9%. So on any given day, that over 6,000 people within the city could become homeless. Thank you. So they're not particularly homeless at this point, and we've been talking about a lot less numbers today. However, there is that potential that any one of those persons or multitude of those persons could become homeless. So in the event that as we continue down this path, that's something to think about. And that's one of the parameters that when we try to find funding and different types of avenues that we go down, those numbers are something that we're going to have to really look at and figure out, how does this play into our piece of the puzzle? So just keep that in mind.
Yes.
Very insightful to know. Hi, Scott McDonald, Christ Our Hope Anglican Church. We're fairly new to the area within the last year, so very thankful to be here today. Thank you for the invite. So in regards to those that are on the periphery, not quite homeless, but are at a poverty rate, what I kind of maybe read between the lines is that's an opportunity for prevention there. And I'm just wondering from those who've been here, what are some of the best ways to prevent taking that plunge into homelessness?
That's one of those macro questions. So I would say we recognize that as one of the issues that we have to address, but we're not going to be able to answer that question today, except give us some direction of where to go. Part of that is because I don't think, even though some of us in this room have been here a long time, we don't know the answer to that question. We talked about a lot of the resources here. I think one of the first things we'll do on a short-term group is to coalesce those resources in a way that's more pointed toward the particular issue. The street card is a very broad-based, it covers everything. So if you see that, it's like 9 or 6 panels, three panels, and everything is listed. But everything you might need, you think about it, and it's a handy tool, but it doesn't really dig down to the next level. That's what we need. And if we're going to deal with homelessness as a subcategory of that, and of course all the subcategories we listed up here, which we'll send this information out to you, by the way, so it's not going away forever. Mental health, addiction, veterans concerns, all these things that exist here in Fairborn. That means that it's a comprehensive problem that ends up in homelessness. I was talking with Pastor Haney, who's the new pastor at Light of Christ here in town, and he said to me, you know what, it needs a flow chart. Where you start with homeless and you end up with a solution, but there's about 6 different paths to get from here to here. Having them all in front of you doesn't help. I need to know. So I got somebody in my office who's homeless, and it's obviously he's mentally ill. What's step 2? Step 2 is not to go to, Bridges of Hope or whatever. That may be a step, but that's not step 2. It's not go fish. So that's what we're looking. One of the things we might look to try and create, an accountability, sustainability. And that's relatively easy because we can help identify and put that together. The second thing is that, all of these agencies in Xenia, and thank you for coming, and thank you for filling me in. I didn't know a lot of this stuff. And the new, like you're new here in the community, and DeRoche is new here in the community. Thank you for being here today. These are resources we can use, but they may not fit the bill. So we may have to create resources, and that's one of the things we talk about. What can we do? I know what we can't do, because I've been told that multiple times by multiple people. You can't do that. I know what we could do if it was a perfect world and there were no barriers or impediments. But what can we do? That's what we have to identify. And that's going to be kind of a much more smaller goal, but I think anything we can do to make the step will lower the percentage of those folks who are falling off the edge. That just lower the percentage. So that's the way I would measure success. Short term, and then the long term would be, what can we do that can start moving systems? That's a massive undertaking. It's not going to be done just by Fairborn. No way. We have got to be talking with Dayton. We've got to be talking with Springfield. We've got to be talking with Xenia. And they have to be people here who are comprehensively dealing with that problem, because it's not different in Xenia or Dayton or Springfield. It's just not. And quite often, as we're learning, as pastors here, it's not even different people. I call Route 4 the Trail of Tears. Start in Dayton, they come here. They burn up the resources here, they go to Springfield. They burn up the resources there, they come back here. They burn up the resources here, they go to Dayton. Now, here's what happens. The school systems are undermined by that, because the state has a comprehensive view of schools. They show up here, they're enrolled here. In September, they take their tests, they bomb. And the state has a idea that they come back then in October and retake the tests, except they're not here anymore. They've moved. So those become permanent scores. And they go to the next school system and they bomb there, because the culture in which they live is prohibitive against them being able to get ahead educationally. Now, we know that's the problem. Does Springfield talk to Fairborn, talk to Dayton? I don't know. Maybe they do. But I know that the state's not talking to anybody. They have their own set of rules. So we need to open the conversation up. We just need to open it up. We need to insist on it. So what Marilyn was saying earlier, we need to talk to our county agencies. We need to have that conversation. But who will they talk with? Talking with Paul and the people of Fairborn? No, they'll do that. Will they talk with you or with me? Or no. I mean, unless I go to a citizens forum and talk, but so providing that basis for conversation take place, this regional, more comprehensive. These are all things we can do and we might do, but we have to decide on. That's creating an accountability system where the conversation flows in both directions and we can get some real results. We may not get where we want to be, but getting anywhere from where we are would be an improvement where the homeless situation is concerned, because it's gone up and down, but it's never gotten better in 30 years I've been here, never. And by the way, those who want to say that it was a good old days, no, I was here from 78 to 80 in the furniture business. Let me tell you, it sucked just as badly then as it does now. It did. We had a different relationship with the Air Force Base then than we do now, which I think covered over some of that. But no, it was not different. And it was not different people. It was not different dynamics. It was the same.
We've been talking a lot about opening up a conversation within each other here in Fairborn, with Fairborn and the county and with other agencies and such. I think another good solution, probably be longer term, would be to have some sort of support network where we get together on a somewhat regular basis and learn from one another how best to tackle these things and to learn better what you do. How do we best refer? Whether that's clergy or citizens or everyone, and to try to get together for that purpose.
Well, one of the things that I keep hearing here, and I think you're working at it, Pastor Craig, is the strategic plan on how we make this happen. And the planning part of it, I think, is so critical, is to getting these goals together, getting the objectives under those goals. This is what we need to achieve. Your goal says that's the direction we want to go in. The objectives under that are the specifics of what we're trying to accomplish. So I think that's really important. The other thing I wanted to bring up is the ripple effects of this that you may not realize, but next year is a census count. Do you know how much money the county, the city loses for each individual that's not counted as a resident? It's about $1,000. So when we start talking resources, money to do this kind of thing, it's imperative that we get a count. Now, I know it's difficult in many situations, especially if you don't have a home address to tie this to, but an effort to identify these folks, because money is tied to that. And I know money is the root of all evil, Pastor, but
No, the love of money is the root of all evil.
Thank you.
Yes,
But
not money.
that's the resource for helping folks, is very critical next year, because if we miss it next year, then it's 10 years before we get to have another input. The census also determines what representation we have at the state level. The House of Representatives is determined by the population. So as our population decreases or uncounted population gets higher, we have less representation. So I think it's really critical that we get counted as many folks as we can next year in the census. There's also jobs associated. They're one-time and 10-year jobs, but they are decent paying jobs for the census. And I think it's usjobs.gov, usajobs.gov. So if there are folks that have that ability to do any of that census count, there is an opportunity for some income there. So thank you.
Okay, let me just talk about some numbers here that I want to share with you before we go on. First of all, I did ask you to send out to the churches. I said, let's just find out what the churches and the agencies are spending annually on homeless or home-related issues. That is, somebody comes in and says, if I don't pay my light bill, they're gonna evict me. I got responses from 6 congregations and agencies. These are not huge congregations and agencies, but they're actively involved. Now, to give you, first of all, I don't know how many agencies there are in the city, but I'm talking about like the Senior Citizens Center, that's an agency, Fish is an agency, those kinds of things. But so far, I have a running total of about $18,000 spent by those 6. Now, that does not count money they send to Habitat for Humanity or Interfaith Hospitality Network or any of the structural ways in which we address homelessness countywide. That's just money that gets doled out by cash or check to individuals who show up at the door and say, I need this. Now, that's 6 agencies reporting. So we have 60 churches and probably another 24 agencies. So extrapolate that out. I don't think it's even a stretch to say we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars under the rug every year to address this problem. That money comes from someplace and it goes to someplace, but it's completely unaccounted for. And it's a resource that is not actually affecting any change. It keeps people off the street or out of trouble in the moment. But for the most part, it does not address the underlying dynamics or change any of the directions or trajectories. So if there's a better way to leverage that money, that's one of the things we should talk about. Not spend it. We're going to spend it, but spend it smarter. So the question is, how do we get 60 congregations who don't even talk to each other half the time? No, all the time. And 20 agencies who talk to the congregations, but not, so that's going to be one of the challenges long-term. Now, the second thing is that one of the things we have is we have lots of sheltering opportunities in Xenia, but we all know that part of the problem is we don't have sheltering opportunities here. And one of the reports that the FCA got from Fish is that one of the 2 places in town that would receive money pulled out because the people who are being sheltered, they're problematic. There's no question about it. So they're addicted. They have problems. I have a daughter. This is not about judgment. It's about reality. That's what they do. I'm not judging it. It's just the reality. You can't be foolish about this. And so these business people are going, we can't do this anymore. So that number went from 2 to 1. And how long do you think it's going to go from 1 to 0? We have a problem there, and we're going to have to fix it because we just, at this point, can't get in the car or take people. Does anybody here know where the nearest bus stop for Green Cats is in relationship to their congregation? I do. I know. Sure. I said, yeah, I know. It's right up the street there at the plaza. Okay. But I'm wondering, beyond those agencies who deal with it, go ahead, Beth. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So see, that's kind of information that just doesn't get down very deep. It's there, but it doesn't get down very deep. So these are other things, short-term things that we can provide if we're talking to each other in a way that would immediately ameliorate the problem. Just knowing where the bus schedules are, where they're located, just knowing that would be helpful. How can I get a bus schedule? Where are they located? I know they're at the library. See, but when they're 2.5 miles away at my door, just as an example, if I don't have one to give them, and I know it's at the library, what good is that? Especially on a day like this. See, this is what we have to talk about. Everybody in this room should have a list of those bus schedules available. They're free. Everybody should have one. Everybody should have a street card. They're free. Everybody should. What?
Shannon, who is the marketing person. Mm-hmm. Shannon, I can't think of her last name.
Right.
Yes, she would bring it to every single person in this room.
Right.
It's supplied with your address.
If they know Shannon's last name, how to contact Shannon, and how to be there, that's the problem. I agree. It's not a lack of willingness; it's a lack of coordination. Absolutely. Identifying these resources and getting them out. Yes, ma'am.
Has a linkage meeting quarterly where all these groups gather and we invite people to come in, and Monica Schiffler with Children's Services organizes
right.
it.
And that's in Xenia, correct?
Yes, and it is in Xenia, but it's
right.
on Thursday.
And I've been here 28 years,
one.
and I first heard about it 3 months ago, which is not your fault. But that's the problem, see?
Right.
And I'm actively
So
involved.
all those organizations that can help
Correct.
meet in that room, and
Correct.
there's a lot of them.
In the back there, Chris?
This Thursday at 9 a.m. It is in Greene County Media Room. Job and Family Services, the License Bureau is all there. But that's a great way, and Fairborn's represented there. It's just held in that location.
Correct.
But the email out there, even if you're not an organization and you'd ask for resources, as gentleman up here did, I've
Right.
seen people come in and sit. You can hear the resources. You can get emails. They're very good about emailing all the upcoming events from Fairborn to all the different
Okay,
cities.
but here,
That's what's
and
going
I
on.
hear all this, and I'm glad to hear all this. And I know, so I'm aware of it. And it's not that you're not doing your jobs. I don't want you to get the wrong idea. We're not doing ours because we can't. As we're talking with the pastor of Light of Christ, we're full-time pastors. We're not full-time social workers. So when somebody comes to our door at 3:00 in the afternoon on Monday and says, I need help, immediately, we don't stop what we're doing because I can't, but we do what we can. And having this information at hand is not always easy to do. No, to God. Some of you, there's a variety of agencies, too many almost, but they're all doing good work. And we want to support them as we can. Some of them are new to me, some of them are long-term. Beth? Yes.
I think it's really important with this group that's here right now, I don't want to lose this knowledge, is to set a goal. As Mr. Keller said, we need to, so what does this group think is our primary goal? Is it to open a shelter? Because then all these other things that we're talking about are the objectives, the way we
Correct.
achieve that. But what is our ultimate goal? This group sitting here, what do you want to do? Do you want to have a shelter to help homeless people? But then what happens at that shelter are the small
Right.
specifics that we get people to come to. So I just think before we leave today,
Oh, we
let's,
will.
one goal,
Thank you,
well, and I'm
Chancellor.
saying in the interest of
Yeah.
time,
Well, I know, thank you. And I know that our time is running short, but we're not out of time yet. I think I'm on time here. Yes. Oh, I've got those headlines. This is the three goals I would say that the short-term people need to talk about is a streetcar specific to homelessness. And we need to put that information down. Everything that is here today that you talked about, I sent you an email to invite you. Please return it to me with this information. Just if you got a brochure or whatever, email it back to me. I will then package it and resend it out to all the folks that I have. That'll be the first step. But we need a group that'll do a street card and take a look at all these, get that on a card that we can pass out, because here's the problem. The FCA, the Fairborn Christian Alliance, only deals with about less than a quarter of the congregations in this town. We don't have a very broad footprint. We can expand that footprint, but getting that information localized so we can get it out, that's the first step. Second of all, emergency responses. We've got some opportunities. This building is one of them. Opportunity, not possibility. We have a lot of boundaries to overcome. Staffing, code, city cooperation, money, all these things, but you can't overcome it until you set the goal. And third, the census is a new one. Getting people counted, that's something we can take on too. Those are short term, because by 2020, that's, two of those, three of those are done. Long term is one of the things is creating regular points of conversation information. In other words, how do we replicate not this meeting, but once we've identified these short-term goals, identify some long-term goals, and then having a regular meeting of these agencies. Maybe it's twice a year. I don't know. Maybe we go to those quarterly meetings, but we have to know where and when they are, see, and send a representative there, and then getting that information disseminated. And there's other long-term goals as well. Again, as you go out today, 2 places, sign up for short-term, long-term. And there's a lot here that we can't talk about. We get on that because here's the deal. The FCA will take those names. We will assign some folks to coordinate and to facilitate. And we'll say, we're going to set another meeting up for this group. We're going to talk short-term is where we're going to meet, is what we're going to do. And we'll get together and we'll start reporting back. Folks, this is a long journey. It's not a sprint. I'm not even sure it's a marathon, because that's 26.2 miles. It's longer than that. But we got to start somewhere. And so here's what I need to start. Today, you've heard information, you've been gathered, you've got my email as a point of contact. Please send me any information that you have, you think that everybody should know. I promise you, I will send it out through our network. We'll get it out, okay? And I'll send back to you what we talked about today, the street card. And then second of all, sign your willingness to be short-term, long-term. We'll send you some dates to meet. If you can't make it, you can't make it. That's okay. But we want to know who you are so we can invite you, all right? And I don't care if there's 40 people in one list and 3 on the other. That's what we'll start with, okay? And we'll help to facilitate this, and we'll get our agencies involved where they think they would best fit as well. Questions or comments? Yes.
One observation and question. The observation is meeting caps schedule is that if you got a computer or a mobile phone, you get in 2 minutes. The question is, do we have a similar access to the streetcar?
No, we do not. See, that would be a long-term goal. I mean, it might be done. Yes, I've learned when it comes to technology, anything's a long-term goal. Yeah. No, I'm serious because first of all, you're talking about the most technologically resistant group. They all have cell phones, but surfing the internet, no. That's why they sit outside my building on a sunny day. I am talking about the same people. Yeah, we're talking about the same people. Yes. But, yeah. I know. That's right. If they know where you are, if they know when you're open, and if they can get to you, I agree. One place that we have all these things available. That's my point. The libraries where a lot of them go because they get the computers, and that's where they access the internet. It's not they don't have cell phones; they get cell phones, but they can't access the internet. Right. So that's why they spend a lot of time in the library. I know, which is new. And that's another resource I'm not sure everybody knows about, which is fine if the weather's nice. But on a day like this, they're not going to sit on a bench and surf. They'll go to the library. Those of you who are interested in staying for a few more minutes, we're going to walk through the building downstairs and show you the space. Here's the deal. As I said, a lot of overcoming here, but as I think it, there's two opportunities down there. One is that we can create offices where we can invite the county agencies to come. Say, you have it on Monday, you have it on Tuesday, you have it on Wednesday, and get that schedule out to people. We'll, create an office, pay for it, give them access to it. That can be done. On the other side, maybe we can create an emergency shelter. Now, that's a much, much bigger deal than just finding space, because you got to have somebody here to open it, somebody here to close it, somebody here to watch it. It's a 24/7 kind of a deal. It's going to be used heavier in the cold weather months than it is in the summer months, because frankly, a lot of these folks who are mentally ill don't want to be cooped up. They don't want to, they're not about safety, but they don't want to, they'll sleep in the park. I know that because I say I've got a brother-in-law who's an alcoholic and a daughter who's a drug addict. That's where they sleep when the weather's nice. They don't want to be cooped up, but you can't access them. You can't provide them with any services if you can't find them. So we have to think of it as different than just giving them a warm place to sleep or a nice place to sleep or a meal to eat, but think about what we can provide in terms of interactive services. And that's a longer vision, So the place is only the first step. How you use the place is the second, third step. It's a long-term goal. So we're in for a very, very long journey. We have to put resources together. Don't get on this moving train unless you want to ride for a while. And don't stand on the track because we will run you over. So you want to get in and get off or get out of the way. I don't care. But we really want everybody to be on this, because if we can do something here that this very parochial community can break out of its boundaries, that's something we can maybe replicate in Tip City or West Milton or Springfield or wherever. Beth?
About what she went through, what she needed, what she had, she's already in her experience. Let's not recreate.
Oh, we're not, like I say, talking about whether you do something is not the same as doing it, right? That's all. That's what I'm saying, is that group would manage this process. We kick it off. That's all we can do. I can't answer all those questions today. I can even but I know what they ask, but yeah, I agree. Creating a temporary shelter is an idea, but it doesn't resolve any problems. It creates a whole slew of new ones. And you're right. We're not going to reinvent the wheel here. It's not like people haven't done shelters before. Of course they have. And we'd be foolish not to ask them. So yes, but that's not my job. Okay, yes. Yes. Bristol.
Was talking about, because you're talking about families and you're talking about kids. And kids are the most vulnerable group in this whole thing. The word trauma hasn't been mentioned here today, but we have just not knowing where you're going to stay. I mean, we don't have any experience. Nobody in here might not think it. If you do, God bless you. But that seems to me, this is this idea of we know a lot about this group. We know a lot about our challenges and help adults. We know at the same time. But to me, that is probably the most real thing long term. And they involve all of the down to the wood. But that seems to me like that would help close it. And it doesn't have to.
Okay. I'm going to stop us. We're at our time. I'm sorry. It's 10:30. We're done. I'm going to call it because that's the way I am. 10:30. And so there's lots more. You're welcome to stay and talk with each other as long as you desire. Those of you who want to take a tour of the downstairs, Deacon Nancy Trimble and Pastor Peter Cruz, who are assigned here, will be happy to walk you downstairs. Please go with them. They're at the back. Raise your hands, guys, so I know who you are. In about 2 minutes, they'll take that. It won't take you long to look at it, but I would like as many of you who are able to go down and walk through it and start getting your minds crossed. But please make sure you sign on a sheet before you leave. It's on the table. And thank you for coming. God bless you.
Sir, thank you. I gotta get out of here. I gotta be in Vandale.
I know.
Supposed to be there at 10.
Sorry.